come down the Ullman Straight. Yes, he is much closer.
Very, very close behind, under 0.2 of a second. That's going to come down to under 1/10 of a second if he decides to go for the move. He's going to think about it. A little bit of a Pruitt fade there from Krasowski as they go down into sunset.
Doesn't completely cover it off, though, and Fujita is through. He is our new leader coming off the final turn, but I don't know that he can hold it because Krasowski gets a great launch off the corner. He goes off to the right-hand side as Kazuki once again defends behind them. Olivier giving watch, and he's going to take advantage of it. He's going to try and poke his nose through to take second place off the hands of Daniel. It's not done yet. It carries on down into 3.
It keeps going here. Olivier trying to be later on the binders, and he's going to shut the door. That is Dominic Olivier up into P2. Krasowski demoted in 3 corners, 2 positions. Abner Acosta worked in on the high lane there on Josh Daniels to see if he's got anything. They're going to come out of the corner. Noah's Ark here, 2x2, and a big checkup. But here comes Josh Daniels thinking about making this 3 wide.
3 wide, and he absolutely sends it in deep. O'Brien tries to as well, but it's the high line that counts for the 28. No, it doesn't. It bites him. He falls backwards. Now the 77 back forward. And look at this. We didn't even account for Acosta. Acosta stuck through all of them, and he is going to manage to get up to 3rd potentially here. Sending it deep into 1. He's got it. Coming down into Sunset Bend, he's going to have to go around the outside. Pavolano, we've seen his defense before. He knows how to do this, but can he do it against Kwok? No, maybe not, because Kwok carries speed and just finds a gap around the outside. That'll give him the inside coming into turn 1. The job isn't completely done. He could maybe see an over-under from Michael as he takes it wide into the first turn.
Yeah, I think you're right. Looking as we set up, trying to come through here, we're on board with Raymond Day, looking around, trying to find a way to get through these guys, taking a look as they both defend deep onto the inside, holding enough ground to not make contact from the power down, and just making it around number 87, Peter Newhook. Oh, little contact there too. Little contact.
Little bit of contact, a little bit of off track there for Raymond Day, but he's able to keep everything gathered up back under him. But he's going to be a little bit compromised here as he tries to get by Peter Newhook going down into Verth. They are really trying to hold on to this here, working their way, and they're still side by side.
Oh, Raymond Day doing the best he can in a disadvantaged line, trying to come down into here. Look at that, just getting his nose ahead, holding on to that position on the outside.
Here comes Andy.
Seems to like that exit of that corner. The car handles it well. Aggressive defensive move from Gernot Frisha, almost pushing him off into the grass, but he's given just enough space, and a lot of wheel spin there from Frisha. Unfortunately, that puts him slow out of the horseshoe, side by side, coming up in an NASCAR bend. Mikko Lino trying to do it the hard way around, and he's got it. T's recent lack of success has left him little to write home about, but it hasn't lost him the points lead. The lack of any other repeat winners has not allowed any one driver to step forward as a threat to Andy's championship run. Will someone finally come to the fore here at COTA? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Circuit of the Americas is the new kid at the table in the North American racing scene. Let's head to our track guide to find out a bit more about it. Welcome to Circuit of the Americas. The cliche of everything's bigger in Texas rings true for this track in the Lone Star State. Built specifically for Formula One, the number of corners, circuit length, safety features, and general track amenities immediately set this place apart from almost every racing course in the United States. Of the 3 layouts available, the most widely used is the Grand Prix circuit, which tops out at a whopping 20 turns along nearly 3.5 miles. Many of them have been modeled after well-known sections of European tracks such as Silverstone, Hockenheim, and Istanbul. But compared to those venues, this place still has lots of unique challenges. Turn 1 in particular features the largest elevation change from the lap and culminates in a blind and sharp hairpin. The penultimate corner is just as tough, with its off-camber apex and sudden drop forcing many to escape to the paved runoff on the outside. And though it was meant to lure F1, many other series have now raced here, ranging from IndyCar to WEC, IMSA, and even V8 supercars. Track days are also common, with the SCCA running all types of amateur events to allow up-and-coming drivers to feel what it's like to battle on the same tarmac as Vettel and Hamilton have. With this track, American race fans finally get to experience a purpose-built course made in the modern day. Texas went bigger and better, and in the process, raised the bar for their peers. Well, DJ, this should be an interesting mix of the new with the old today.
It certainly should, Joe, and part of that is because of COTA's design mimicking a lot of classic circuits around the world. Look for these cars to really have a blast coming through that turn 3 through about turn 10 sequence that is very, very reminiscent of the Maggots-Beckett's complex at Silverstone. But the major overtaking opportunities are pretty much exactly where you'd expect them to be, going down into turn 12 off the long backstretch and then up into turn 1 or Phil Hill coming through there, as we've seen many a time. But from there on out, it's going to be relatively single file. Those are really going to be the only two good overtaking opportunities, and it's going to be a lot of follow the leader and setting up the passes. Although if you are alongside going into turn 12, we have seen the opportunity to be able to battle back and forth through the tricky Mickey Mouse sections that exist on the third sector of this track.
And even though it has put on good racing in the real world in F1, we'll see if old F1 machinery gives us as good of a show. Meanwhile, as we take a look at the championship, I mentioned Andy T still leading the points, and it's Timo Karjalainen who is now in second behind him as they start to see some of the drop points come into effect. Marco Kayla, who's been the one that at times is as quick as Andy T, if not sometimes faster, is still a little bit behind in a close fight with Timo. With Michael de Turk, his win last time out has put him tied for fourth with Pauli Partanen. What about in the team's championship here, DJ?
Well, in that team's championship, Joe, it is Ligier Gitanes up on the top of the list, but only by about 27 points compared to Kupskar Fittipaldi Automotive. Arrow's racing team only 2 points behind them, so a very close battle for second, as well as another close battle for P4 with Equip Renault Elf only 5 points ahead of Parmalat Racing Team Brabham.
As for today's event, not all that many laps because it does take a bit to get around here at 28 circuits around for today's race, and it is open setup. That could be a bit of a talking point. Not sure if drivers will be able to trim it out for those long straights or how much they will be able to try and help their passes. They don't have a spare car if they get any damage. Now, there is all that paved runoff, but there's some fast corners where the cars could flick off and find a barrier. And drive-through penalty at 17 incidents. I have heard some discussion behind the scenes that it is a serious concern. And in fact, the last race 2 hours before now apparently saw a lot of drivers rack them up. And then a disqualification at 25 incidents as well. Before we get to the qualifying, make sure and check out the Majors Garage, home of free Baseline Plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more at majorsgarage.com. Or use our special discount code MajorsGSRC for 10% off, where there's a link in the description below that'll directly apply that special offer. And we're just getting the first times in. Michael de Turk provisionally holds the pole, but we're waiting for T to come around. In fact, I see him out of the final corner there. And across the line, it is a 150.1. That'll be good enough to dispose of de Turk.
Yes, it will. And speaking of those off tracks, it looks like Gernot Frische not able to get a time down courtesy of the off tracks. The iRacing system obviously discounting a lap if you pick up one of those 1Xs. So that could be a storyline that we follow here throughout this qualifying session. Drivers not able to get times down courtesy of running just a little wide.
Ooh, Marco Kayla had the same issue, so that is a big concern for him too. He's got to keep it tidy, or else he's going to be starting at the back of our 18-car grid here today. So Frische, Paul Williams finally gets one in, so he goes to 10th. Still waiting for one on Ove Trangarade. He's definitely got to hurry. He might not be able to get his second lap in. Pekka Kelahara also in the same position. Otherwise, 14 drivers able to put a time on the board. So Gernot Frische, who we follow, flying down the back stretch into turn 12. Got to hit those brake markers just right and keep it within the boundaries. That one looked good. And now through the fiddly bits where the ground effects on this car don't really help him as much.
True, Joe. Those ground effects really come into play at higher speed sections. This is all about mechanical grip through this portion of the track. And that may be one of the reasons why we see some drivers maybe think about trying to trim out the car a little bit more. Now, one of the parts that you will need that downforce is that long turn that we just saw him go through, that turn 16, 17, 18 complex, bringing it on down now through the final corner. I think Gernot was able to keep this all underneath him. Let's see what the time's going to look like as he crosses over. And that's only good enough for 11th.
Oof, that is rough. And Andy T goes quicker with his second lap. to Turk wrecked on his second lap, so he's not going to be able to do better than second place. He's susceptible to Tolinen, who's just finishing his lap. 50.6 is not going to do it, so he'll stay in third. Still a number of drivers to go, including Marco Kayla, who now finds himself in second.
A great lap there for Marco. That'll get him within 0.3 of a second of Andy T and about 0.3 of a second ahead of Michael de Turk. So some pretty wide margins there up at the top comparatively. We watch here Ove Trangarade working on his second lap through that multi-apex right-hander. Ooh, calling it quits.
Interesting. And Paul Williams managed to go up to 12th with his final time. About a minute left for Kelahara here. Do you have anybody behind him? Looks like no. Nobody else besides Kelahara that are able to complete their runs. And he sits in 18th, so there is definitely things to be gained by keeping in it for the number 17 with about 50 seconds on the clock. Down through the stadium section. And he's way wide through the second hairpin there. Keeps it within the boundaries, but this is not looking quick.
No, it is not. Let's see how he handles the multi-apex right-hander here. Looks like he's relatively good. You've got to be careful not to let it run too wide at the exit of the corner, rather. Keeps it together there. Very nice and tidy coming through turn 19. Obviously, not like when IndyCar ran here, and you can take that all the way to the end. Let's see if he can go a little bit faster. He can if that time's going to stick.
It does, but he doesn't find himself enough pace to overtake Barry West, which means our grid is set today. And that means Andy T takes another valuable 2 bonus points with pole position. Marco Kayla starts next to him. It'll be Michael de Turk, who is P3, followed by Jukka Tolinen in the 4th position. Severi Seppa, good enough for 5th. Then it's Timothy Reed in 6th. After that, Dylan Freckleton starts in 7th. Mikko Lino starts P8. Peter Konechny in the 9th position. And Ove Trangarade with his 1 lap, only good enough for 10th.
In 11th, it's going to be Karthik Pai, followed by Paul Williams with Gernot Frische and Robert Plumley in 14th. Isaac Snyder will line up to the inside of row 8, followed by Armando Edwards. Barry West will be 17th, and Pekka Kalahara will be 18th.
Last time out, Andy T did not manage to make it past the first corner without an incident, and unfortunately that one not his fault. So we'll see if he has better luck here at a turn that is known for causing a few incidents up into Phil Hill there, as we are waiting for the rest of the drivers to grid up on this relatively cool Texas day. It's 71 Fahrenheit pretty early in the morning, 9:30 a.m. virtual standard time right now. And Michael de Turk finds his way out onto the grid. 22 Celsius for those out there on the metric scale. A little bit of wind as well. Hopefully that won't disrupt the cars too badly. So now we're just waiting on T and Tolinen to find their way out there and set the cars ready to go. But boy, iRacing's kind of put them at a bit of a jaunty, not angle, but not quite lined up with the grid positions. Never noticed that before. That is very strange. But anyways, Andy T now finds his way onto the grid. And they've got about 15 seconds left, so Tolinen better hurry his butt up and get the car on the grid. There it is. That means the engines will now start to rev as the lights come up for round 7 in the Sunday Grand Prix Series. And the green flag is out. Andy T does not look so hot compared to his teammate Kayla, who's coming up around the outside as they fly up the hill into the braking for turn 1. Inside to T is going to allow him to hold that lead. A little bit of a spin in the back, some contact, and I'm not sure who that was, but it looks like everybody's able to keep it rolling.
I think that may have been Mika Lino. I also see Ove Trangarate falling down the order, but everyone able to keep pointed the right way as they work their way through the S's now. T's starting to try to build an advantage. He's got it up to about a half a second, which isn't surprising through this fast section, especially early on. Even with the ground effects, these Lotuses will find it very, very hard to follow.
Armando Edwards gets clipped, and unfortunately the 18 gets spun around. He'll pick it back up and keeps it going back up to the lead. It is not over for the front runners because Kayla's still hounding T. Let's see who's taking the wing out to try and get the speed down the backstretch.
All right, looking at those overall speeds, it looks like Andy T's pretty quick in a straight line, but obviously the draft coming into play here for Marco Kayla and Michael de Turk behind him. A little bit of an earlier entry into the corner there for Marco Kayla, and you can see how it hurt him a little bit. Andy T able to stretch his legs a little bit as they go into turn 13. Now, this is that tricky section. It's not a lot of rhythm through here, Joe. You've just got to focus on hitting those apexes. Very, very hard to build anything at all because it's just speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down.
Hurry up and wait, unfortunately, as they come to complete lap 1. And it looks like your podium is going to be T, Kayla, and de Turk, which is as they gridded. So coming down and across, T actually pulling away, coming out of that final corner. We watched from on board, Michael, up ahead. And all three of them certainly have got themselves some space at this stage. Some of the closer battles are definitely shaping up behind them. I see Timothy Reed and Dylan Freckleton looking like they might have something interesting happening. They're also pulling along Paul Williams and Karthik Pai as well as Knesny. Did Plumley have an issue?
Looks like he did. We'll have to go back and figure out exactly what happened, but Plumley falling down the order, completely out of it there. Isaac Snyder down one position. That's who we follow right now. Whoa, that was a little bit of a look. Timothy Reed getting very, very spicy, trying to take a look on Dylan Freckleton. Freckleton got a little bit sideways coming through Phil Hill, and that's what set up this whole run here for Timothy Reed.
And it was Isaac Snyder who had contact with Plumley in that spun in front of him in that first turn, and that's what caused that problem through there. As we also have a car, well, that's Plumley. It looks like he's got a meatball flag. He's going to have to come into pit lane and get repairs. He is not allowed to ignore that. And coming down into turn 12, my goodness, this train of 5 is mighty close. Freckleton having to hold defensive on Timothy Reed down into the first of the pair of hairpins, and Reed is rebuffed. Paul Williams can't take advantage of it. Little look to the inside once again from the 6, but he's chopped off for the second time.
And he took a big clobber on the inside curbing there. Now, he's got to be very, very careful. These cars are very susceptible to undercarriage damage. And so if he's too aggressive with that curbing, not a big sausage curb there, but even just the serrated curbing on the normal track, he could pick up some damage and really run into trouble.
Great exit there from Freckleton to get him out of reach from Timothy Reed this time. Farther back, it looks like Pai and Knesny are the closest of this group now. Once again, back into Phil Hill. And Oof, a little bit of a look to the inside from Williams, but nothing doing there. I think we have a replay on both the incident that brought this together and the one with Snyder and Plumlee. Let's see. This is Armando Edwards into turn 7 and just popped that wheel out of the air, and it's hard to keep turning when that's the case.
Yeah, normally 4 tires on the ground leads to the best kind of contact that you can have. Let's take another look at that. Not sure if that was a little bit of, I've got to say that was a little over-eager there from Isaac Snyder, but I also think Plumlee could have given him a little bit more room. He certainly left the door open. Now, this is the second incident here. This is, that was just a spin and around.
Yeah, once again, Snyder involved in some action today. He's able to keep going, but Plumlee got too much damage from that. He has since brought it into pit lane. Here is watching Plumlee. Yeah, he was already wide through there. Did not expect the car to suddenly be sideways in front of him. And that did not wind up in his favor. Meanwhile, Paul Williams has got a front row seat to Reed and Freckleton side by side into the stadium section once again. And again, Freckleton is not giving it up.
No, he is not, and that's not for lack of trying here from Paul Williams. He is really trying to force that car this way and that to see if there is an opportunity. It just doesn't look like he has the straight line speed to necessarily close up behind Timothy Reed, here, or excuse me, by Dylan Freckleton. I wouldn't be surprised if Freckleton's maybe running a little less wing.
Ooh, and Reed had a great exit off of the final corner. A slight defense out of Freckleton, but not enough of one to hold back that red number 6. Sends it down the inside into Phil Hill. Williams wants to take advantage. Can't quite do it. The battle carries on, though. Freckleton with a great exit. Wheel to wheel down into the S's. Who is going to give way? It's got to be Reed again.
I think he had just enough to try to keep his nose in there, but Reed just choosing the discretion is the better part of valor, trying to hold this off, but he's got to be very, very careful. This is really allowing for Paul Williams to be able to get involved in this battle, and at this point, Freckleton is keeping this whole train behind him. Look at this, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars.
Coming down into the braking into 11 once again, way wide for Freckleton. If he can carry the speed, he'll be okay. He does, but the slipstream is already towing along the number 6. He'll get another bite at things. He had a try down into turn 1. Is he going to do better this time? Getting pinched down to the inside. It is so hard in these tight hairpins to get the run off. Deep on the brakes for Dylan. Timothy Reed is going to be on the wrong side of the track. He's going to have to chop across to get this one done, but there is a car there. Freckleton just managing to keep himself in the fight, but now he finally has to give way.
Oh, and watch out here. Paul Williams getting very interested. Big clobber of that inside sausage curbing there again. You've got to watch out for under tray damage. And this is allowing, because of that checkup, Karthik Pai now to be all over the back of the number 11 of Paul Williams.
This has been some of our best battling on the track. You're not missing anything up at the front. T. Kayla to Turk still separated by decent margins up there. Another little look from Williams, trying to see if he can take 7th away from Freckleton, but he goes wide and finds himself just slithering off the course. And Williams sporting a different Hills helmet. That would be Damon Hills on there. No relation to Phil, and going way wide. Unfortunately, it doesn't help him through Phil Hill as he slides out of control, and Karthik Pai is able to sneak into P8.
Yeah, that's a good play there for Karthik Pai. Now that is a little bit of that mental game, as that is Prisha off. No.
Well, that is West. No, Knesny. Excuse me. That was the 13 who finds himself losing control, and just, unfortunately, I think that was a case of, once again, those pyramid curbs at the apexes are just intensely punishing for just about any car that dares clip them.
Yeah, and you can see left front wing damage there on that machine. Definitely going to be very, very hard to control. Yes, downforce isn't as high in these cars. It's mainly generated by the under tray, by that ground effect, but you still need that front wing to be able to turn in correctly.
And there's no telling how much damage is on the underside of the car because he hopped 4 wheels into the air when he clipped that thing. Meanwhile, let's head back to Williams because now that Karthik Pai has gotten by him, he's having to fight back. And side by side through the stadium section gives opportunities. Whoa, what a cut back there from Williams. Just to sneak to the inside of the triple apex right-hander. And that will actually get him the spot, but I don't think the job is done. Pai trying to attack once again. Into the penultimate turn. Both of them trying to keep it on the track to avoid those penalties late in the race. And it looks like Williams has it. That was a brave move out of the 11.
It certainly was. Talk about knowing exactly where your car is. That kind of cutback, very, very hard to pull off. As here comes Gernot Friesche, maybe having a look to the inside now of Karthik Pai. That's not going to work out for him, but he's got to be careful. Mika Lino looking very, very aggressive behind him as well in that red and white machine.
Seems like a bit of a bogey track for Gernot once again. Qualified in 13th, and that already was a bad sign, but he's only made his way up to 10th. At this point, some of that, I believe, due to attrition, and a bit stuck in this little train currently.
And not really able to move his way up and forward, and that's very, very surprising for the winningest driver in this series. So Gernot just having a little bit of an off season, it feels like, Joe. We haven't seen him really battling at the front all that much. It may just be an issue of not being able to get enough sim time, or we haven't really seen him be quite as dominant since they put the new tire model on these Lotus 79, so that may have something to account for it as well.
It takes a little look down into 12, but and he misses the apex while he's at it, so Nico in the 8 tries to get himself involved. In fact, he's going to try and go around the outside of the first hairpin. Finally has to drop back after that one. And we've had a problem with Peter Konieczny once again, this time at turn 12, and this time with contact with Barry West.
Barry looks like just a little bit of damage to that front wing. Nothing too bad, but you can definitely see there on Konieczny, double damage now to that front wing. That car is going to be hurting a lot.
What if we could get a replay of this? This is one of the most clean pirouettes I think I've ever seen in a race car. Made it look like a skateboard. So he gets clipped. And it's almost like he was waiting for it and immediately just keeps rolling. But unfortunately, that's little compensation for Peter, who's still down in 17th. Last car running now and off the pace.
Yeah, and that's right up ahead of him. That is Armando Edwards and Barry West trying to go side by side through the S's. Very close battling there. That is Edwards trying to get by, trying to fight it, trying to do anything. And this is really allowing for Peter to get back into this battle.
West comes back hard, though, into turn 7, but has to give way. And Edwards, this time around the outside of that corner, does not get clipped into the air. He'll move himself into 15th. That's not exactly where he wants to be. He did start 16th, so he's up 1 spot. We got another chance for Barry, and I'm not sure if he's actually going to take it. He tries to get down to the inside of turn 11 and is not able to get the grip off the corner. Now Peter Konieczny behind him, hoping that slipstream will help him be quick enough, as we got a battle farther up ahead. And this is Karthik Pai side by side Lino Friesche. Lino's going to be able to get ahead of him. He's going to go for another one. He's not just taking one, but he's too hot into the corner, and that goes into the side of the Texan. And in the midst of it all, how about Ove Trangrade getting 3 spots in a single corner?
My goodness gracious, talk about opportunistic there for Ove Trangrade, just holding back and waiting. We haven't called his name a whole lot today, but he is the big winner out of that incident.
The C's just parted, and the 12 said, thank you so much, gentlemen. I'm going to take the 9th position after that one. Friesche had to actually check up to stay out of the problems and had to lose that spot to the Norwegian because of that. Now he's trying to chase him to get it back. Lino has to head into pit lane. Let's take another look at that.
And just look at that move. There's this spin, just a little bit too early on the throttle, maybe a little bit too much speed coming into the corner, and that's what sends Pi and he back down through it. It was a very good-looking move, just didn't exactly stick the landing.
Yeah, Mikko Lino, the second one now to find himself with a meatball flag and have to take repairs. Looks like Isaac Snyder has since come into pit lane. Not sure what caused that one. We got a little bit of an attack here. Or no, excuse me, we're on replay still as that was Freesia trying to come back through. But coming back live, Trangrade still about half a second ahead of Gernot for that 9th position. Still not missing anything up at the front. It's stayed stationary. T leads Kayla, leads to Turk. In fact, Michael has dropped back to about 4 seconds behind Kayla right now.
Yes, he has, but this battle here, Gernot just stalking behind Ove. Ove a little bit off the apex there, coming down into turn 15. Now they bring it on through. You can see Gernot, that's really smart from him. He actually backed off a little bit, coming into that long, sweeping right-handed corner. Didn't want to catch too much of the draft effect, didn't want to catch too much of that dirty air and really throw him offline.
Still sticking with it. He's within reach, if not attacking range. And they fly up the front stretch towards Phil Hill. Not even halfway into this race. We've had a lot of action here in the early stages and braking hard. He looks pretty good, but he goes too deep. Both of them a little deep, and back down the hill they plunge.
Yeah, very easy to miss the apex there going into Phil Hill. It's such a tricky braking zone. Yes, you're able to brake a whole lot later than you normally would because you're going uphill and you're able to use the weight of the car pulling you back down to aid in the braking. But because it's just that blind apex, nowhere to turn, you really just have to intrinsically know when to turn the car, as there's not a whole lot of markers you can use to be able to sight your apex.
Good news for fans of Killahara and Snyder. Both of them are back out on track. However, we have lost Lino as our latest DNF, down to 16 cars left running at this stage, and they're starting to separate somewhat. We've still got this battle between Trangrade and Freesia, but West and Knesny, the only other one that is relatively close at about 7/10 apart. Whoa! Little mistake there from the Norwegian coming into turn 12. He is thankful for the paved runoff, but that loses him a lot of time, and now he is offline.
He is offline, and Gernot doesn't need a second opportunity. He's going to bring the car very, very wide through turn 15 to try to carry momentum, but it's right back at that same spot we've seen him before. This is one of the highest speed corners on the track, so very difficult to follow directly behind. You can see how Gernot's taking that wider line through there. Joe, it's almost like you're racing these Lotus 79s on an oval through there with as much speed as you're bringing. The dirty air can just massively throw you off.
Back on the front stretch, and Trangrade recovers. So Gernot had a brief moment of hope, but he's going to have to regroup and try again. Let's see into the braking here if either of them can hit their marks this time. A little bit better for Gernot than it was for Ove.
Yeah, but Ove able to at least hold it out for now, pull away a little bit as they work their way through the S's. Gernot doing a good job to follow behind. Again, that's another area where the dirty air can really, really affect you.
Just a quick note, Marco Kayla actually ran about 2/10 quicker than Andy T last lap. So he's cut that down somewhat. Not sure if this was a mistake from Andy or if Marco was starting to feel the car come into its own.
Well, we often talk about how these cars are a little bit different in terms of their setup, Joe. As you can see the lap times there, with the exception of lap 8, there hasn't been a whole lot between the two of them. But certainly with these Lotus 79s, the lighter they get on fuel, the looser they get. They're very, very prone to those weight changes. You can really feel it out in the car. And so as you get lighter, they get looser. They get a little bit snappier, let's call it. And that really allows for some drivers to get
the maximum out of them. The ground effect stops being as little as effective because there's not as much weight pushing the car down into the track, and it can really, really liven up the car. And for some drivers, they absolutely love it. It can really help them get some great lap times, and for some drivers, they absolutely hate it as the car is just a little bit too unmanageable.
Last time, T faster by a 1/10 of a second, so he's responding, not interested in letting this become a fight with his teammate. He wants to get his first win since round 3 in this series, back at the Hungaroring. Since then, Le Mans did not go his way, Brands Hatch did not go his way, and then VIR, as we mentioned, very first lap, found himself punted into the grass and had to take a recovery drive from there. And down into turn 11, Kayla still hovering at about 1.1 seconds behind. These teammates seem to not have much between them. And I'm sure there is some information shared there, but you gotta wonder, is there any tricks up Andy's or Marco's sleeves that they can pull to make this closer?
Well, I think here for Marco, it's just a matter of pushing, and trying to get as close as possible. He wants to try to be under about 7/10 of a second on the long back straightaway to really get the maximum effect of the draft, and he doesn't want to do that, locking up the car a little bit going into turn 15. That gap, it looks like it was coming down a fair amount through the first 2 sectors, but in sector 3, Andy T went purple, and so that really threw him out of it and is ostensibly making these gaps equal.
Yep, stays at about 1 second as they cross the line. 51.6 that time across for Andy T, his personal best, but a 51.4 for Kayla. And as the much shallower line from Marco. Don't think that was a serious attempt, but certainly gave pause to me because he almost got within a car length of Andy that time.
Yeah, he did, but I thought for a second it was going to lose him a little bit of time just because he wasn't going to be able to get the power down correctly coming off of the corner. But it looks like he's been able to keep this gap nice and tight. Now, remember, the first 2 sectors on this track seem to be where Kayla looks pretty quick. He really starts to struggle a little bit once they come off of the backstretch and into that stadium section. This time, though, Andy T able to respond through sector 2 right before they cross onto the backstretch. Ooh, is that a slowing car there on track? That's Freckleton.
It is. He unfortunately lost a number of spots. Freisha, the latest to go by, as he's our latest victim from the apex curbs. Let's get a replay of this one. And he was sent for a ride. Once again, the paved runoff has really been the savior of a lot of these drivers. Unfortunately, it might be their might be their devil just as much if they get too many of those incidents, since they can go off and continue on like that, because as we mentioned, there is an incident limit, 17, and they're going to be sent for a drive-through.
Oh, and Joe, I have been in that position in these Lotuses. Very, very terrifying. The car just goes up in the air, and even when it comes back down, it's not like you're landing in a normal car, a GT or even a Formula 3 machine that a lot of people are used to here on the service. Because the ground effects are so important and you're spinning, you're not getting the full weight of air coming directly underneath the car, and so it feels like you're just sliding around on ice. Absolutely no grip, and that makes it a very, very impressive catch there from Dylan Freckleton.
That sends him down to 10th, and he now joins the fun between Freisha and Trangarade here on lap 13, getting close to that halfway mark for our drivers now. So still time for Dylan to try and make up for that mistake as they come around Phil Hill once again. And I can tell you, as we've had a problem with Edwards. And it looks like maybe Barry West as well. And into the barrier. I think Barry West might be done. The car doesn't look like it is steering straight now.
No, and Edwards and West, both massive, massive crabbing. That has got to be day done for both of those cars. They are not going to be able to pull those things back around and into the pits with that kind of damage.
Yeah, That starts with Edwards. He had a spin in the penultimate turn. Barry West could not avoid, clipped him just right that it unfortunately hurt his suspension. Here's Edwards. Car just comes around, can't keep it from spinning, locks the brakes up, but poor Barry, it's a blind apex, and by that point, he was on a trajectory.
Yeah, really nowhere to be able to get for him, and an unfortunate end for both drivers there. But that is what happens. I mean, sometimes you can take a big lick like that in these Lotuses and be able to continue on, but the minute you start to get a little bit of that counter steer, it is not going to work. And in terms of Armando Edwards, that's a little bit of that oversteer, that snap oversteer that I talked about, that as the cars get lighter, they start to want to break away on you. And clearly Armando, they're just not ready for that catch.
Interestingly, they're both still 13th and 14th, despite having been in pit lane for some time, because Kellehara and Snyder are both a lap down and trying to play catch-up on them. We'll see how close they come out to those two after they get the repairs, if they can get repairs done before this race is over. We're not entirely sure what all needs to be done on the cars. So back up to our leader, Andy T, the number 2 on this car, still trying to catch up to the I rating of Gernot Frische. But even if he's still trying to catch that I rating, he's certainly found the speed over him. A lot of wins and podiums yet to go to match the records of the multi-time champion, but Andy T is certainly on a good season right here to continue to rack those up.
Indeed, Joe, and if my calculations are right, this season will put Andy T on 12 victories. Gernot Frische little ways ahead of that with 162. Oh, as we've got another car around.
That was, looks like Peter once again, and I'm pretty certain he still has some lingering damage from earlier. This was out of Phil Hill that he has spin, found himself just touching the barrier to the inside of the track. But Peter's probably not in the best of handling cars.
No, and he looks like he has a black flag here at this point, and we believe that's probably the first victim of that incident limit that we've talked about, as that spin will more than likely probably count for 2, maybe 3 incident points, and that's just enough to put him over that 17 limit.
It's got to be a frustrating day for him. And what's more is it's not too many more incidents after that. We don't know exactly. We just know that he is at least at 17 or more. All it needs is another 7 at the very least, and he finds himself actually fully disqualified from this race. And here we go again. The battle coming back together between Frische and Trangarade.
Yeah, it was out over about a second, and Gernot really able to pull it in over the last 2 laps, able to gain back in to the tune of about a 10th and a half and about 8/10 over the past 2 laps. So definitely starting to apply the pressure here. Now, Gernot may have just been backing off a little bit to try to cool down the tires a little bit, gather everything back under him. These tires, they do overheat, but not a lot of wear gets put on them. They're designed to go a full race distance. That's one of the reasons why you will not see a pit stop over the course of the race here today.
To add to the woes of Peter Konieczny, he just about ran himself into the pit entry barrier, almost overshot it, and thankfully did not touch it. He's now serving his penalty. So between these two, it's a battle for 8th. Freckleton behind them. Remember, he spun and was running ahead of them before, has lost time since we last looked at it. So I wonder if Dylan also experiencing some damage that has slowed him down.
Very well could be. A spin like that, even though it doesn't look too severe, can definitely upset the wing a little bit, upset the under tray rather. I think there's just the slightest bit of damage to his right front wing, but I'm not sure, as Marco Kayla sets the fastest lap of the race.
So last time a 51.3 compared to a 51.5 for T, 2/10 quicker, but we've not seen that consistently come down. It's just kind of ebbing and flowing between first and second place in this race. So will there be a similar ebb and flow between Frische and Trangarade? If my eyes are line to me. Are they catching Williams as well?
They are indeed. That is Williams right up there ahead of them. So there's going to be some lap traffic that comes into play here very, very shortly. Or, excuse me, that's Isaac Snyder, I believe, directly ahead of them.
No, that is Williams. That is for position in the 11 for 7th place. And I can confirm last 2 laps were a little slower for Paul Williams. So Trangrade's starting to run him down. This actually might be good news for Freesia, because if Trangrade finds himself distracted, Gernot could use that number 11 as a pick.
Exactly, and especially on some of the slower portions of this track, having that slower car, that pick car directly in front of you can really, really help. By the way, just a quick note for fans of Dylan Freckleton, I was able to take a look at the car. There is some right front wing damage, so that is one of the reasons why he is significantly slower.
Number of drivers that are being caught out by this technical and newer circuit here. As we come through into the stadium section once again, it's down to 0.8 of a second between Trangrade and Williams. And another fastest lap, this time though, Andy T responding with a 50.9, first driver so far in this race to break the 51 mark.
Yeah, Andy, I think, has this race sewed up. Everything we've seen from him is really an indication that it's just a nice back and forth, that he's not pushing too hard, that anytime Marco starts to get within about a second or so, Andy puts his foot down, able to put in a blinding lap like he did the last time, and just managing that gap quite well.
I think that's the kind of race he likes to have, just up at the front and cool, calm, and collected. Not to say that he doesn't enjoy sparring. Anytime we've seen him in a race that's a draft race, he doesn't want to just sit behind and let somebody cruise in front of him. He wants to be the leader. And meanwhile, these three cruising in the mid-pack have been one of our good battles through most of the race, mainly between Trangrade and Freesia, but joining the friend of Paul Williams. Down into 11 they go. You mentioned 0.7 the marker earlier. Well, it's 0.6 between Trangrade and Williams, but he has a little bit of a slip up off the corner, and now Freesia's got a good draft.
He's got a very good draft. This is going to come down to who's got the car a little bit more trimmed out. Here comes Gernot.
Down to the inside for turn 12. He's got the apex, but the job's not done. It's going to switch back, but Trangrade back to the racing line. He knows when he's been beat. So Gernot gets himself P8. Can he catch up and pass Williams from here?
That is the real question. Now, that battling has allowed for that gap to ebb back out a little bit. It's up to about 1.8 seconds, but Gernot looks like a little bit of a faster car, so he may be able to pull that back in here in the last closing 11 laps.
Let's keep with this. Now that he's managed to overtake, we have one of our drivers that may be done for this race. I know he's still taking repairs. So let's see if we can get some info from Barry West down there. Barry, commiserations that we're talking to you a bit early. I see you've had about 8 minutes of repair thus far. Are you going to be able to get back out there?
No, it's too much damage. Front left was completely demolished, really. I thought that as I drove into the pits, but yeah. We've had words, and he couldn't have done anything. He had his foot on the brakes and slide, and I just chose the wrong side. And if it weren't for the fact that I'd already got 11 off tracks, I would have probably gone to the right, but I didn't want another off track, so I slowed up and just couldn't miss him. I only just nipped him, actually. So I'm really surprised I did actually catch him, but I thought I slowed enough. But one of those things. At least Andy won't have to wait a long time now this week, will he?
Exactly. Well, so this week we heard drivers talking about concerns about the off tracks like you just mentioned, but it seems like this is a track that has actually caught out a lot. We've had some decent attrition. Are you a bit surprised that we've seen this many DNFs today?
I thought it would be, but I mean, I've not done any practice at all. I did a few laps on Monday night, and then I did the previous race, and that was my practice. And I was just being careful, and seeing I started, 17th, I thought the only way is up if people come off and cause trouble. So I was getting stronger and stronger, and I think we had an altercation earlier, and Amanda got by, and I was catching him up, and I could gap Peter behind. Peter had damage, so I was leaving him, and Pekka was behind him. So yeah, P12 was definitely on. So it's just one of those things, I suppose. It's a bit unfortunate, but that's racing.
Yeah, sometimes that is the case. So we got to go back to Ove Trangerade, who's now on the attack on Gernot Frische. There was a mistake from Gernot coming through the penultimate turn, and as they go side by side into Phil Hill, it looks like maybe Gernot can hold him off. No, great exit from the Norwegian, but he backs out of it, and that is going to kill that battle for now. Sorry there, Barry, as action started to erupt once again. I take it we're going to see you back when we come back for Oulton Park in a week?
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't miss that one. Yeah. So it's really looking forward to that one.
Well, again, sorry that we won't see you at the checkered flag, but can't wait to have you back when we come back to your home country, sir.
Cheers, Joe.
That was Barry West, who looks like he's going to wind up 16th today. Well, this has actually been advantageous for Freckleton as well, despite a lack of pace a little earlier on. He's cut it back down to 1.2 seconds. I'm sure he's egging those two on up in front of him.
Yeah, he wants to see this battle continue on, Joe, because the more they battle, the more they go offline. That's just more time that Dylan is able to pull back in on the pair of them. And he's doing a good job of just putting down consistent, solid lap times to keep himself in contention.
Once again, through the little stadium portion of the track, 9 laps left to go now. So the drivers are hitting towards the end of this race. Frische up from 13th to 8th. That's a nice gain. I'm kind of curious, though. I don't know if he'll come in and talk to us. I'm curious if Gernot's going to be happy with this race or really disappointed that he couldn't even crack into the top 5 today.
I have to imagine he's going to be a little bit disappointed, although we have seen him a little bit off the pace as of recent. Just a top 8 for him doesn't feel like it is a victory, and so for him, I think anything outside of a top 5 or a podium is going to feel a little disappointing no matter where he starts in the field.
I guess we could consider these his Vettel years. Just sometimes you need a little time off from up at the front to find your way and figure things out. I'm sure his determination is going to bring him back to the fore eventually. They're starting to become a bit of a 4-car train here, really. They've caught Williams, but they're almost stalling out a little bit. Gernot's still in it. Ove's still in it. And as I mentioned not long ago, Dylan Freckleton creeping back forward as well. But they're kind of teasing us here. They're close enough that it's worth watching this compared to everything else on the track, but it's definitely not close enough for anybody to be in a battle right now.
No, it's really not, but this is sort of part of that mental game that you get to play into a little bit here. You start to just hover behind in those rear view mirrors, get a little bit into the head of the driver in front of you and see if you can force a mistake or two. You're certainly within that distance, because once that gap is under about a second, you really have to start worrying about that car behind. So they're doing a good job, all 3 of them really, to just keep in that mental range.
Tell you what, along with this, Marco Kayla keeps trying to make this a race. He got down within about 0.8 of a second briefly. He's currently at 0.9 of a second. He wasn't as fast as he last lap, but the prior one, he was 0.4 quicker at times. And we've seen this before, DJ. Kayla seems to just be able to turn up the wick, but it's almost like he can't consistently do it.
Well, that is part of the problem when you are just pushing that hard. And I was keeping an eye on this battle on the last lap. And I think for Kayla, it is just a matter of that consistency. That he ran a little bit wide on the exit of turn 11 last time. And so that may have spooked him a little bit in terms of trying to get the off tracks down to a minimum. I will say Andy T set the fastest sector 2 that we've seen all race long. Marco Kayla matched him to 1,000th of a second. So both of these drivers really pushing these Lotuses as hard as they will go.
And with Timo Karjalainen not here today, pretty certain this is going to allow Kayla to get back into second. Unfortunately, he's going to continue to lose points to his teammate, which might actually put him a full win's worth behind. Now, granted, again, they will have some more drop points calculated after this week, and that could change the complexion of things too. Back once again to the battle for 8th or for 7th, depending on how you want to look at it. If you feel like they are close enough to Williams up there, who's now stretched to about 1.9 seconds up the road.
Yeah, Williams also looking like he's kind of got this gap under control and is just managing it. I'm very impressed here, though, with Ove Trangrate's ability to keep up behind. Now, Ove is one of those drivers that we're usually used to seeing really trim out the car as much as possible. But even with that, he has been able to keep very, very close through the fiddly bits on this circuit. Is doing a great job of just keeping in Gernot's mirrors. But he has got to worry about Dylan Freckleton, who is really caught up to his back and now is going to be all over him through the first couple of sectors on this lap.
I think Dylan's got that number 9 underneath him now. He's regathered up this group, and not because of them battling. This has been raw pace and starting to threaten on the Norwegian as they come into the S's once again. If he stays this close by the backstretch, he might have a chance to actually try and overtake.
Yeah, he just might. He's got to try to keep up behind, though, and especially as they speed up here a little bit, very, very tricky on the second part of these S's. These corners start very, very quickly through turns 3, 4, 5, and then by the time you get to about turn 7 is when you've really got to start braking. It's flat out before then, and then you've got to start just dabbing the brakes a little bit until you finally get to the almost 90-degree corner of turn 9, and you can see there it just caught Dylan out just by a little bit. He is going to be back down to a gap of about 7/10. That's not really going to be in attacking range at this point.
And don't close the betting windows yet. Kayla's got it down to 7/10 of a second, this time by 50.633. Andy T, a 50.894. Kayla's starting to find something. And wow, you can see how close he's getting. If he gets just a whiff of an opportunity, I gotta think he is going to attack.
For sure, Joe. Kayla's been doing a great job just slowly but steadily weaning this gap in. And once again, these are teammates, so I anticipate their setups being pretty much the same. It may just be a matter of driving style here that Kayla's able to extract a little bit more from the car as it gets snappier and that fuel load wears off.
Coming down into 11, going to be 0.6 of a second this time as they round that corner. He's much shallower down to the apex. Will that hurt him off the exit? 0.5 of a second. He should feel that slipstream. Here they go, picking up speed down the backstretch. How much closer can he close in? The gap is coming down. Just under 0.5 of a second by the time they hit almost 180 miles an hour. And as he brakes, oh my goodness, he gets it down to 0.3 of a second.
Really looks like here that Marco Kayla is a lot more brave on the binders. You saw how much he was able to close. And as to that early apex point, Joe, that's just Kayla's driving line. He's been doing that the entire race, not only up through Phil Hill. We saw him do it through turn 11. We've seen him do it through some of the slower speed corners on this track. He just likes to take that earlier apex, get on the throttle a little bit earlier. Whoa, letting the tail end slide out there a little bit through 19.
That's not what he needs right now. Minimizing mistakes is going to be of the utmost importance. It falls to almost 0.9 of a second here this time by. Not a good lap for Kayla. They're now down to 5 to go. Time is still left to regather the distance between himself and his teammate, but he's going to give himself precious little time to overtake.
Catching is one thing, overtaking is another thing entirely. And Joe, interesting to note on that lap through the 4 sectors, Kayla was faster through the first 3. It was just that little snap of oversteer coming through 19 that cost him a big chunk of time.
Can Andy T remain cool under pressure with the Finn right behind him? Down to 0.8 of a second once again. Going to be a little far behind unless he's very good, and like you said, he is good on the binders here, coming down into 11, but it ebbs and flows between 0.5 to now back to 0.7, 0.8 of a second. They're getting some lap traffic up in front. That's Pekka Kalahara, and he's already down 1 lap, so Pekka's not really in a battle here. He has no reason to try and hold them up. It's all going to be probably down to where they catch him.
Yes, it is. And Kayla faster through the first 3 sectors here by a couple of hundredths of a second each time. Ooh, a little bit. He just likes those narrow apexes. They do it, Joe. Very interesting line there from Marco. You're seeing really 2 different driving styles here, and it's kind of fascinating to see on display.
Really is fun to watch between the pair of them. See who can bring what strengths to the fore at what part of the track. Now 4 to go. This is going to be a great place to catch Kalahara, who does give a little lift. He lets one through. Is this going to hold up Marco Kayla, though? Another Finn. Is he going to give way to his countryman? Yes, he stays off to the outside.
He does, but that compromised Kayla just a little bit. He had to take a little bit earlier even of an apex than he had been, and just caught the merest whip of that apex curb. Now, granted, didn't cost him too much. He still has that gap at about 8, 9/10 of a second.
Ooh, but Kayla caught a little bit of one of the pyramid curbs coming through the S's, and that also slowed him up there. We're seeing cracks form in the attack of Marco Kayla. Just can't seem to do what he needs to do to get close enough to actually get side by side with Andy T. Coming off of turn 11, it extends even up to 1 second now. This is the farthest it's been for at least 3 or 4 laps.
Yes, it is. And Kayla changed up his strategy there a little bit. Went into the corner a little bit later, tried to carry momentum into the apex, and didn't exactly play out. But there again, that early apex line, bringing it in, he's able to get that time back down to about 0.8 of a second right now as they run.
So going to be 3 to go next time by at the line. And it's not over. Do they have any more traffic that they're going to be catching? No, there is nobody up in front. This is going to be a straight fight from here to the end between this pair. De Turk, nowhere to be seen. Another valuable podium for the 7, at least, but he is a full 13 seconds behind them.
A full 13 seconds behind, so really no worry about that getting caught back up. That gap coming up to about a second again as this continues to rage on.
Oh, and I think Freisha has caught Williams. He's side by side with him. Down through the stadium section, Williams tries to fight back. He gets a nose ahead. Can he chop across? He doesn't. He gives space, but he doesn't need to chop across as Freisha is not able to complete the pass.
No, you had a good look at it there, but you really need to get that move done a little bit earlier in that sector of the track, ideally going down into 12 and 13 and be able to try to wrap it up. Just not able to get it there, but Gernot is certainly threatening now, and rest assured that Williams is going to know it, and he's going to have to push to try to hold him off.
Every place can be valuable in this series. Braking for Phil Hill. Very different lines once again. Much shallower exit for Freisha. Setting himself up here to now swing into the S's. Already 140 miles an hour by the time they hit that right-hander. And then back and forth, patience on the throttle, hitting every mark. And it seems like Freisha not quite doing that as he goes a little wide at a few apexes.
Yeah, Gernot just not looking like he's into control of the car there. Maybe a little bit close behind in that aero wash, and that threw him out just a little bit. As that would slow him down. That would have to be what I think would be going on there.
Keeping an eye on this and keeping an eye on the leaders simultaneously to see if either one is going to become something bigger. And down the backstretch, look at the weaving that we're now seeing out of Williams as well. He knows that he's pulling along Freesia. He doesn't want to give him any more advantage than he needs. A little bit of a slip up from Gernot coming across the apex.
A little bit of a slip up, but it didn't cost him a whole lot of time. He's going to be able to stay within about 0.5 of a second now as they come on through those tricky hairpins, lining up for the horseshoe now as they come through. Gernot again taking that opposite line to try to minimize aero wake. He's got a pretty good run here.
He's sticking with him. Oh, and a little bit of far off to the runoff for Williams. Could open the door. He goes off to the side. He's got a slow down penalty. And Freesia, oh no, it's a black flag. Excuse me, not a slow down penalty. Williams is going to have to serve that next time by because we're 2 to go, and he is simply allowing Ove Trangarade through. That is good sportsmanship out of Williams, knowing his race with them is effectively done.
Disappointing end to what was shaping up to be one of the best battles on track. You've got to feel for Paul Williams hitting that 17 incident point limit.
Good timing, because now Kayla is within 0.2 of a second. He could do something here, but he's got 1 lap to do it. Tries to cut down inside on the second hairpin. Can't get the overlap on Andy T. The white flag awaits in Barney's hands for these two. Can Marco Kayla snatch this one from T and deny him yet another victory?
He's certainly going to try to, but the gap coming out a little bit here. We're also getting word that Dylan Freckleton has gotten a black flag, so he will have to serve it on this lap. That gap holding down under 0.4 of a second now as they cross over the line.
1 to go. Braking, and he's going to try and get his nose in, but he's not close enough. Given space at the apex. Andy T in survival mode maybe. Just trying to make sure that he doesn't make contact with his teammate. Feeling confident enough that he's far enough behind. Down through the S's. Kayla just following in his tire tracks, and he's too far off. Kayla off into the runoff, and that might have ended it. I don't know if he caught the apex curb or what, but he just was sailing out into the runoff there.
Joe, I was actually riding on board with Marco Kayla, and he did catch a little bit of that apex curbing. That just caused the car to wiggle just enough to throw him offline into the marbles and off track.
Disappointing to see. Williams did manage to get into pit lane, and Freckleton carries on. Well, Freckleton's just going to bite the bullet. He's going to take a 1 lap penalty then after this is over if he does not serve that. So, well, that'll actually be good for Paul Williams because he'll be able to come back out. He's returned to the track, and he'll at least be ahead of Dylan. That means a top 10 for him. But, boy, Andy T comes around the stadium section. He didn't get this one free. He definitely had to fight. He had to push hard to keep his teammate Marco Kayla behind him all race long. And the number 2 has not been on the top step of the podium since we visited the Hungaroring back earlier in this season in round 3. But win number 4 on the season for Andy T with a pole position, a dominant performance today for the 2.
A very dominant performance, able to weather the storm coming from Marco Kayla, who will cross the line in second. Good little battle here shaping up behind. This is Jukka Tolvanen and Timothy Reed coming into the final corners.
Oh, and a change for position between Freesia and Trangarade. Freesia went deep into the first turn on the last lap, spun the car, and that's going to lose him the spot as we watch this fight continue on. Now onto the main straight, but Tolvanen is going to be able to hold 5th over Reed with Seppa just barely ahead. And the next ones across will be Trangarade and Freesia. So the 12 finally gets one over on the 1 here out of the last turn, taking that 8th spot. How about Karthik Pai back in it after getting tangled up earlier on in the race, last one on the lead lap, to get a top 10 today. And from there, it looks like we're going to head to a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. So stick around.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Circuit of the Americas here in Texas. And it was Andy T in round 7 of the Sunday Grand Prix series that took his 4th win of the season. His teammate Marco Kayla was right on his tail towards the end, but one mistake on the final lap put paid to that. Michael de Turk, a quiet 3rd place for him, was well ahead of Severi Seppa, who, apologies, we didn't get to cover that as much. It looked like a great battle there at the end between himself, Tolan and Reed, who finished 5th and 6th behind them. Ove Trangrade also in a good fight all race long, getting 7th place ahead of our highest I-rated driver, Gernot Friesche, who had to settle for P8th. Karthik Pai was 9th, with Paul Williams serving a penalty on the last lap, and that sent him to 10th. Dylan Freckleton wound up 11th, as from there on down, it was drivers either with a DNF who were unfortunately just didn't see the checkered flag or finished laps down. I do believe we've got Andy T, our winner, ready to talk to us. So the number 2 machine coming home finally with another win. Andy, were you sweating it all with Marco getting close behind there?
I'm literally drenched, boys. I'm absolutely soaked. I can't even.
It certainly looked like it was getting tense towards the end. Were you surprised that he came back at you, or did you expect him to get a little bit quicker late in the race?
I just knew he had my pace, so it was ebbing and flowing the whole time. And he gained a little when I had a back marker in turn 1, and I wasn't sure if they were going to actually send it or not. So I sort of missed an apex, cost me 2/10. And then I hit one of the little sausage curbs in the stupid S's section that should be nuked and sent away forever. And that cost me like 0.4, and that put him right back in my draft, which was less than ideal, shall we say, given he's so quick.
And you cut it a little bit close out there. I see 15 incidents on your tally after the checkered flag. How many of those were on the last lap to try and keep yourself safe?
I had maybe 10 to spare with about half the race to go, and I knew Marco would push and take off tracks, so I just did the same. Shout out to him, by the way. Incredible driver. He pushed me so damn hard. I'm just sweating so much. Plus, he actually practiced this week, so he can return his damn Finnish beach season pass excuse for when he doesn't win. The boy does practice no matter what he tells you.
All right. Well, next time out, we're heading to home territory for you at Oulton Park. We're going to see you there.
Yeah, I love that track, man. Yeah, so much fun. Have good memories there.
All right. Well, best of luck and congratulations on the win, sir.
Thanks. Just a quick shout out to Hoops for putting up with me today. The fam, Raccoon Boys, you're all great. There was no way, in fact, I was going to throw that win down the drain. Love you guys. Bye.
That was Andy T, 4th win of the season, followed home by Michael de Turk, who finished 3rd behind him. DJ has caught up with him.
I have indeed, Michael. A little bit of a sort of an anonymous race. You were just running by yourself out there, but coming home on a podium's got to feel good.
Yeah, I'll take another podium. That's always a bonus. COTA is such a hard track that just finishing here feels like an accomplishment. So.
Well, it certainly is. We've heard a lot of the drivers, sort of complaining about obviously the sausage curbing, but is it particularly difficult in these Lotus 79s, and what makes it so?
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot harder in this car than, say, GT3s or LMP2. Yes, you can take the curbs a lot more aggressively with those cars, even forgetting about the numerous off tracks that you're going to take. But in Lotus, you get one corner wrong and it just cascades into 6, 7, 8 corners after that. I mean, you screw up turn 3 and suddenly you've burned 6/10, 7/10 before you get to the turn 11 hairpin. So it's a lot harder to recover just due to the nature of the tires and the way the car slides compared to those other cars.
Well, we head to Oulton Park next week, a little bit more of home territory for these cars. Are you looking forward to that, or would you like to see some more of these Formula One circuits back on the list?
I love Oulton. I love all the tight, difficult, circuits that feel fast. I don't have a particularly great track record at Oulton, but I really enjoy the track.
Well, we love calling it from there, so we look forward to seeing you, Michael. But as for today, anybody you want to give a shout-out to for a well-earned podium?
Typical Lotus group. We have a great community of people. In case I'm going to use this as a second to do that little advertisement in case people haven't seen it. We do setups, demo laps. They're all on the forum. They're done by the community. Most of the guys are top split winners who create them. So if you're ever looking to join in on Lotus and are worried about pace, there's lots of help to be had between those and our community Discord server.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to the community. It is always such a vibrant thing to be able to get up on a Sunday and call you guys, and we very much appreciate it, Michael.
Thanks. We love the broadcast, so great job.
Well, thank you again, and congratulations to Michael DeTurk, your third place finisher. Joe?
Yeah, we'll see if somebody could put that in the text chat and share that link in case anybody is interested. In the meantime, we're going to talk to Paul Williams, who at least managed a top 10 today, but probably not the race he was looking for, especially considering how many positions that he had run up before that black flag towards the end. Probably the bane of every iRacer here at COTA is those incident limits, eh, Paul?
Oh, God, yeah. I'm so annoyed about
that. That's understandable. Up until then, you had Gernot Frische and Ove Trangerade breathing down your neck. If it wasn't for that, do you think you could have held him back?
I think I don't know. I think maybe over the lap, if I could have, I think I was quicker in the first sector, so maybe if I could have got 5-6 tenths, which I did on that last lap, you start to work out, yeah, I think I might be able to do this, but the car was so sketchy at the end as well, hence the off track. But yeah, it was a bit surreal, to be honest with you, having been ahead of Gernot in the early stage of the race, expecting to come blasting through. And then I think something happened. I got a bit of a gap, and they slowly started to reel me in again. And yeah, I thought it was going to go down to the last couple of laps, 2 or 3 places up for grabs there. So yeah, shame. I think I got too many off tracks at the start of the race, silly ones. But yeah, that's the way it goes, I guess.
Well, when it comes to difficult circuits, we've got quite the doozies coming up. Obviously, Oulton Park next, and then after that, Nürburgring, Barber, and then split by Watkins Glen, which I'm sure is going to be a relief, and Long Beach. What an end to the season. Are you looking forward to that, or is that giving you anxiety?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think I've managed to find a little bit of pace recently. I've been away for a little bit. Had some help from some of the guys. So yeah, looking forward to it. Oulton's going to be great. I'll probably miss Nords, to be honest with you. Just not a massive fan of that. It's great for hot lapping, but don't really fancy it in a race, to be honest with you. But yeah, rest of it, looking forward to it. Hoping for some more good results.
All right. Well, we've been watching out for it. Anybody you want to shout out to while we got you?
Just the family for putting up with me doing this on a Sunday afternoon, as always. That's great. And the guys, Andy for a little bit of help this weekend, Michael, and yeah, everybody for making it such a great community to be part of.
That was Paul Williams.
And I want to have a shout out for Barry as well, because he's had a horrible week with some news away from the track, and he deserved a good result here. It's a shame that he couldn't get a finish today.
Oh, that is disappointing to hear. Well, our thoughts sending out to the 16 driver today, Barry West, and that was Paul Williams with a 10th place finish here today. As we wrap it up, again, before we go, we want to give a quick mention to our sponsor, the Majors Garage. Make sure and check out their free Baseline Plus setups at majorsgarage.com, or use our special discount code MajorsGSRC for 10% off all kinds of awesome coaching, telemetry, and more that you can get there. We've got a link in the description below for that special offer. Thanks to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage, and thank you goes to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks goes to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Zach, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. Check out our merchandise store. It's gsrc.storeenvy.com, and we keep a link in the description below, so it's nice and easy to find that. Don't forget while you're down there to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a moment. Next race, as we mentioned, Oulton Park will be Sunday, February 6th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Before you finish watching the Daytona 24, check out the Sunday Drivers' Cup. That'll be at Daytona at 5 p.m. Eastern. So make sure and tune in once you're done watching the real world racing out there in Florida. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.